My name is Robert Morgan, and I'm the director of Stop Motion. Stop Motion is about a young stop motion animator who has a troubled background, and the film follows her as she embarks on a new stop motion film that she's making, and that stop motion film kind of takes on a scary life of its own.
It's not real.
It's your voice you have to listen to.
I came from a fine art background, so originally, way back, I was doing paintings and sculpture, and I was at art college, and I was really into horror films as well. So I wanted to find a way to get from what I was doing, which was painting and sculpting, and find a way to get into making horror films, essentially. And the easiest route for me was to basically start making the things I was already making move. So that's how I got into animation. So I started sculpting little puppets and then animating them on a cheap video camera. And I went and studied animation. I did a degree in animation on the first animation degree course in the UK. And from there, I started making short films, and I actually fell in love with the medium of the short film. I would use a parallel of a writer writing short stories. You know, some writers write short stories, some writers write novels, some write both. I never saw short films as a way of a stepping stone to get into features. I considered them their own thing. You know, their own they exist for their own sake, not as a stepping stone. A lot of directors make short films as a way of proving they can direct a film in order to get a feature film made. Well, I just enjoyed making shorts, you know, for a long time. At a certain point, I kind of just naturally felt like I wanted to start making longer films, and it would be a way for me to use all of the things I'd already learned in my short stop motion animation films, but apply it to a live action feature film. So the idea of a character who is a stop motion animator, so I could use both stop motion animation and live action in the film. That was like a natural marriage. So to give you some background to it, I had made a few short films at that point, but those films had been financed by UK financing institutions. Those financing bodies had dried up. And around 2007, 2008, there was not really any options in the UK to get financing to make short films, or at least the kinds of short films I wanted to make. But at the same time, that coincided with new software being available, things like Dragon Frame and other home uh, applications and digital SLR cameras, and all of that stuff arrived just at the right time so that I could then continue making short films on a much, much lower budget, just at home in my spare room or in a spare desk. And so I basically just I didn't want to write a story. I wanted to just make some puppets and start shooting. And so that's what I did. I made the main character. I didn't know what it was. I just designed this main character. I built a set, and then I animated this character coming into the set. And that was the first thing I shot, and I didn't know what it was. But I thought, as an experiment, I thought I'm gonna try and improvise this film from start to finish. So I will shoot something, edit it, watch it back, and I'll think, okay, what can happen next? So I would write it as I shot it. And that way, I didn't have any idea. At any point, I never knew where it was going. The film was telling me what it wanted to be. So I was just kind of riding the wave of this thing. And this took on and off. I had a spare room. So on and off over a period of about 3 years, I shot this 23-minute film piece by piece. And sometimes I pause for a few weeks, sometimes I work very intensively on it, but I would always shoot and edit. So the very first thing I shot is the first shot of the film. The very last thing I shot is the very last shot of the film, and everything in between was shot in order. And I'd often watch it and I'd go, okay, what happens next? I don't know. But the film would talk to me. The film would kind of start taking on a life of its own. And it's that aspect of it that was the inspiration for stop motion, the feature film, because at a certain point, it felt like I wasn't making it anymore. It felt like the film was making itself, and I was just a sort of almost a slave to it, like it was puppeteering me or something. And I got very obsessed with it, like deeply obsessed, and it kind of made me ill at one point as well. Um, like I got like pneumonia while I was making it because I was so intensely into it, and I was kind of neglecting my health. So I did sort of become this crazed animator while I was making it. When I was thinking up the idea for stop motion, that was basically what was going to be the backbone of the story, which is a stop motion animator whose film takes on a life of its own. I always say when people ask me, is stop motion, the film stop motion autobiographical? I always say that some of the things that happen in the film have happened to me, but not all of them. So, you know, Ella, the character in the film, is really driven to the extremes of behavior by her obsession with the film. And I definitely have become very obsessive about making stop motion animation films. I haven't gone as far as the character of Ella goes. Um, But, I have had that experience of just feeling like I'm just alone and the only other thing in the world is this film, that obsessiveness. I had seen Aisling in The Nightingale, which I was blown away by her performance in that. I thought she was amazing in that film. She was a name that came up when we were talking about, casting it. I thought she'd be great, but I wanted to see other things she'd done, so I watched a few other things that she'd done, and I was amazed to see she was completely different in every film I saw her in. So that I felt was very exciting because she completely inhabits the roles that she takes on. She just becomes that person. You'd never think it was the same actor, in two films, so kind of chameleon-like. And so I really liked that aspect of it. And then we sent the script to her and she read it and she responded to it. And I had a Zoom conversation with her. And straight away, the way that she was talking about the character, first of all, she was talking about the character like that she's going to do it. She's like, okay, I need to think about how I'm going to do this. So straight away, she was already committed to it. She related to the character from the perspective of being an actor, because it's not about being an actor, it's about being a stop motion animator, but it's more broadly, it's about being an artist. And she related to the uncertainties and the insecurities and how the trying to live a creative life can sort of be really crazy for you. So she really related to that aspect of it. That's what she brought to it. And we spoke about the character, had some meetings beforehand and, when we were in prep um, but as soon as I saw her in costume, um, putting on the voice and, being Ella, I was almost like, I don't even need to say anything, basically, because she just was Ella. And from that moment on, when we were shooting, it was really just about small adjustments because she just instinctively just totally understood the character and was just there doing it perfectly. I agree. I think she's amazing in this film. I think she deserves to be way, way, way more known than she is. I think she's a fantastic actor. There was 2 phases to the stop motion animation shoot. So the first phase is everything that you see where there is live action and stop motion animation coexisting together on the same screen. So for example, the scene where the puppet walks into the room when Aisling is in bed and it climbs up onto the bed. All of that stuff had to be shot on set because of the way that the animation and the live action stuff had to be composited together perfectly. So the apartment that Ella is making a film in is a stage set, and we We built a couple of replica rooms, which were built high off the ground, same scale and everything. We'd shoot the live action stuff on one stage, and at the same time, there was a small animation team shooting the animation segments on a separate stage. That was a replica of the first stage. And then, very boring to explain it all in detail, but it was very carefully storyboarded, and the lighting had to match in both sets, and the camera positions had to be exactly the same. But basically, it was all composited together afterwards. And then the second phase of the animation shoot was everything you see that's that happens on a laptop screen. So the film within a film, the animation stuff that she's doing, the Cyclops film that her mother was making, all the cutaways to the pure animation world. I did that myself in my living room while we were editing the film. So during post-production, I was editing, and then I was animating these extra segments as well. And then we could drop those animation scenes into the film as we were editing. And it helped me to shape the way that the cut was going, the live action cut. It allowed me to sort of inform and help shape the animation stuff I was shooting at the same time. So that kind of worked out quite well. It was very tiring. Yeah, I think we shot in February, March, and we finished it pretty much in February the next year. So 1 year from shooting to delivering. I have tried using chicken flesh in a film, but it doesn't really work very well because it dries out. Under the lights, it dries out. So actually, I tend to use stuff that just looks like meat. So I use silicone rubber and fake blood or Vaseline, or colored, maybe sometimes color Vaseline with fake blood, so you can have sort of clumpy, thick blood that you can animate with. Things like that. So generally speaking, I haven't used it. I've used like taxidermy. I used a taxidermied cat once for this film, The Cat with Hands, which you're going to be showing. But generally speaking, no, it's not actually as good as you'd think it would be. Yes, I've used mortician's wax. Although now the story of mortician's wax is interesting because it is true. It's the stuff that they use to fix up the faces of dead bodies, so that they can be presentable to families and stuff. But also in the early days of theatre, performers would use it because it blends into the skin. They'd use it to create false noses and stuff. So it became a staple ingredient of like makeup that theatrical performers would use. But the problem with mortician's wax, it has chemicals in it which irritate your skin. Theatre companies started making their own version of it, which wasn't really used on dead bodies. It was designed to be used on living people. So now you can buy this stuff. It's normally called derma wax or skin wax or something like that from theatrical shops. So it's not actually mortician's wax anymore. But it's derived from mortician's wax. But yeah, it basically looks like flesh, but you can animate with it. I hope you enjoy stop motion on Shadowz and have fun.